they've taken several fingerprints, but the problem is so many people go in and out of the restaurant, it's going to be hard for them to run everything and narrow everything down. When it comes to figuring out who was on the other side of that bullet that struck Larche, cops admit they're having a tough time. I dug up these court papers, and they say that the sailors used a website to target women and rob them. We came to ask you about the paychecks that are bouncing to your employees.
Oh, I don't know anything about that.
Well, we saw the bounced checks, and you signed them, so you should know something about that. Said you didn't know about the bad checks, but you've just been arrested for that. Do you have anything to say about those malpractice lawsuits? You don't have anything to say about the disfigurement or leaving instruments in patients' mouths? I've spent the last few days digging through nearly 300 of VDOT's internal emails, and they reveal money may have been part of the decision to do maintenance on 2 bridges at the same time. Con artists are going on Facebook pages to research family members. I am sitting with them right now. I'm sitting with the family right now, and you'll see it on the news, so why won't you give them their money back? Turns out she didn't just pocket the money. News Channel 3 has learned that she used it to feed her gambling habit and, get this, pay her own mortgage. A lot of people who live in this area told me that they've always been concerned about the jets flying so low and that this was their biggest fear coming to fruition. You can see this. The wind would carry it away if I wasn't holding it right now. This is a little bit of what we're finding forming on the streets and roadways.
This is like a nightmare.
These x-rays can't begin to show the terrible pain Lamar Price has been putting up with for more than a year.
I've been on more pain medication and antibiotics during this time than I have in my entire life.
Price says embattled dentist Derek Broadway's mistakes are to blame for his pain.
Man, I really made a mistake by choosing him to be my dentist.
Price says he went to see Broadway in summer 2011 for a filling, but something happened during the procedure.
It was like, oops, uh-oh. And I was like, huh? Oops. And he was like, well, after I inquired, like, what's going on? He was like, well, I drilled the drill too far down and I fractured your tooth, so I'm gonna have to do a root canal now.
Price says these x-rays show Broadway left something behind during the root canal procedure.
He left part of my tooth in there that he was supposed to take out. He also left in some of the root canal material that shouldn't have been there, and that was the source of why I continue to have these infections. It's just aggravating, it hurts, it really affects sleep, just every aspect of your life.
Price thought he was alone until he saw News Channel 3's series of investigations on Dr. Broadway on WTKR.com. We initially tracked Broadway down after employees claimed he wrote bad checks. Days later, he was arrested. Mr. Broadway, what do you have to say about these charges against you? News Channel 3 also exposed 3 medical malpractice lawsuits against Broadway. Former patients claimed his work left them disfigured and permanently injured. You don't have anything to say about the disfigurement or leaving instruments in patients' mouths? News Channel 3's digging also showed Broadway's 15-year history of violations with the Board of Dentistry. He's currently on a stayed suspension, meaning he can practice as long as he doesn't violate the board's rules. That ruling came after shoddy root canal work done on Rosemary Rogers.
If I had known, I would have never stepped foot in that dentist's office. Never.
I started reading their complaints, and I felt like I was reading my own experience.
Price has already filed a formal complaint with the Board of Dentistry. He's hired an attorney to sue Broadway, too. He just wishes he'd known about the doctor's past before stepping foot in his office.
There should be some type of sign that the Department of Health should put up and say, you know what, you may want to think twice before you select this dentist.
The case had grown cold until a News Channel 3 investigation. Investigator Jessica Larche has this story.
Photographs, flashes of a family's past, love, and laughter linger in this picture of teenage mom Vanessa, her firstborn son Frederick in her arms. But missing among these frozen moments in time, her second-born son, David Izell Blockett. He was only 15 days old when a woman stole him and never looked back. David's hospital photo, the only one big brother Fredericks had to hold on to for 30 years.
When you have your brother snatched from you, you gonna think about him.
The story of these separated siblings begins at this Newport News home on 13th Street. It's December 11th, 1980. 19-year-old Vanessa is inside with her baby boys. A middle-aged black woman, seen here in this police sketch, knocks at the door. She tells Vanessa her name is Marie Kelly, that she's a social worker and there to take baby David to Riverside Hospital for a Christmas party. Mom says she has a 2-year-old son, too. So Marie Kelly agrees to take both boys.
I remember being in the car. I remember my brother sitting beside me. And I remember playing with it was a cassette tape, and I was just taking a ribbon and pulling the cassette tape. But I also remember a man driving the car. It wasn't her.
Soon, the mystery man and woman put Frederick out of the car in Hampton.
And where they dropped me off, I remember a whole lot of white silos, like farm. I think it was more farmland back then.
She put a note in Frederick's pocket with his address on it. Seconds later, they took off. A woman found Frederick. Police brought him back home. Baby David and Marie Kelly haven't been seen since.
Why? Why did this happen? Why did y'all take him? Why? You know, what was the point?
But why this house? Why baby David Blockett? Well, the answer may have been in the local paper. 3 days before David's abduction, a listing of local births in the daily press. Vanessa Blockett's announcement for baby David on the list. Newport News police would soon learn there was no social worker named Marie Kelly, no Christmas party either. The last trace of her or David found on the Yorktown Colonial Parkway. 10 days after the abduction, authorities found a diaper bag filled with David's clothes. In a minute, chilling new details about this evidence discovered just last week. But first, how we discovered David's missing mystery. I came across David's case on a missing children's blog site, started digging. Sadly, I learned Mom died of an aneurysm in 1997. She was just 36. But we found Frederick, an elder now in Selma, North Carolina. We worked with Newport News police to reopen the case.
If you wouldn't find it, David would still be closed case with nobody looking into it.
Newport News Detective Amber Rogers is assigned to David's abduction case. She dug up the original case file. Info inside points to 2 theories. Marie Kelly wanted to sell baby David or raise him as her own. But how could they find her or David today?
I mean, this has so much clues and evidence right before us.
The answer may be in the clothes David was wearing the day he was abducted. It was inside the diaper bag the abductor left on that parkway in Yorktown. Just last week, detectives found them tucked away in their evidence warehouse. David's little booties, blankets, sweater, and jeans. On top of that, a comb and hair samples preserved for 30 years. DNA testing didn't exist back in the 80s. Testing of it today could lead to finding David, the abductor, or both.
I think this evidence will give us a huge boost into locating David and reuniting him with his brother.
But if David is alive, out there somewhere, how would even his family know him? Remember, all they had was this baby picture. So we contacted the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children about David's case, and we came here to their headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia, to see a photo age progression of what David may look like today.
This is a representation of what he may look like.
Joe Mullins is a graphic artist for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
We picked Mom's nose.
We collected pictures of David's family.
We just gave him Mom's mouth.
To help age David 30 years.
There's those eyebrows.
In a matter of hours.
Maybe, David himself could see that and say, hey, that kind of looks like me, which would be the ideal situation.
A situation Frederick's dreamed about for decades.
If you were able to look him in the eye and know that's your brother, what would you say to him?
I'd run up to him and give him a big hug, and I'd tell him that I love him and, I'm glad to see him home.
Wow, what a reunion that would be. Now, we also want to let you know David had some very distinguishing birthmarks, one on his back and the other one on his buttocks. He also had a mole on his right ear. Now, if you have any information about what happened to David, take action. Call Newport News Police at 928-4200 or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-843-5678. Live in the control room, Jessica Larche, News Channel 3. Bobby Moore molested a 7-year-old girl in Norfolk, then paid her $1 not to tell. But if he were staring you in the face, you would never know it. Moore's one of 17 wanted sex offenders across the state with no image on the sex offender registry website. No way to know if the man who forced a little girl to have sex years ago is your next-door neighbor.
But he has no picture here.
Or if one of these faceless offenders is the man who raped Barbara Shine more than 20 years ago.
Sexual predators don't stop with one.
You see, Shine's rapist never paid for what he did to her. So she searches sex offender registries, wondering if he did time for raping someone else.
Sexual predators will go on and repeat their crimes until they are caught.
But Shine's search always comes to a stop.
Some of them have no pictures at all. It's very frustrating because I have no other clues to go on other than what he looked like then and what I can imagine he might look like at this point.
News Channel 3 took action to find out why some of the most violent offenders in the state were faceless on the state's sex offender registry. Are their mugshots destroyed or impossible to find? Nope. We found 3 of 6 faceless offenders connected to Hampton roads. Here's the picture we found for Bobby Moore. He was convicted in 1992 for sexual battery. Police told me they have no mugshot of Moore from his 1992 conviction on record. So I dug through 22-year-old court records on microfilm to track down Moore's details. I matched Moore's social security number, date of birth, and physical description to this picture. It's a mugshot of Moore taken after his March 2000 arrest for stealing. He's wanted because he never registered as a sex offender. Stick around, I've got much more on this guy you'll want to hear. Next up, Todd Franken. He had sex with a minor 16 years ago in Virginia Beach. After we asked Beach Police for a copy of his mugshot for the crime, it took them several days to dig it up from archives. Franken's wanted because he hasn't let authorities know where he lives. And we got results on Mark Christopher Lyons, too. He was convicted in Connecticut for sexual assault in '92. He moved to Melfa last year, but hasn't told Connecticut authorities that. We found his mugshot pretty quickly on that state's sex offender registry. After we took action to put faces to these offenders' names and crimes, we took our findings to state police, even offered to hand over the photos we dug up. They turned us down.
We don't want to get caught putting stuff on the website that we can't prove pertains to that specific person.
State Police Sergeant Charles Plaza oversees the sex offender search in Hampton Roads. He says they can only post pictures of sex offenders if it's attached to the sex offender's registration papers.
If there's no photograph, it just means we don't have one that's current or current enough for our standards as defined by code.
Well, most of the wanted offenders we searched for never registered or had mugshots dating back decades.
We cannot stick a photograph of someone, even though we know it's them. We just cannot put it on the website.
So even if it would help people recognize these people?
For the couple that are out there like that, I don't think it's going to make that much difference.
Right away.
It sure makes a difference to Shine.
It sounds like too much bureaucracy. It sounds like too many barricades in the way.
But our investigation revealed an even bigger problem in the search for sex offenders. Remember Bobby Moore? Well, state police say he's wanted because he never registered as a sex offender. But our research shows that Moore has been in and out of Norfolk's jail several times over the last several years since he did time for the sex crime. But he was never listed as a wanted sex offender until 2008, years after he was out of local police custody.
How does something like that happen? I mean,
it's going to happen. I mean, nothing that we do in law enforcement is foolproof. Someone's bound to slip through the crack in any type of case.
Moore's case is a complicated one. You see, he was convicted in '92, 4 years before federal laws required sex offenders to register. Not only was he in and out of Norfolk's jail, our research revealed he did time in a Georgia prison 2 years ago. But no agency made Moore register as a sex offender.
it seems there was never any communication between those organizations and the state police about him.
That is possible.
Plaza admits there were missed opportunities when it comes to Moore, but he didn't outline any changes that could prevent it from happening again.
Our job is to try to fill that crack up. So until then, we just have to keep going as we are.
Business as usual for state police isn't good enough for survivors like Shine. Still, the search for her offender continues. She just hopes he's not one of the faceless ones.
But I never give up hope, and that's why I keep looking at those registries.
Now, state police say in some cases they have access to mugshots to help them track offenders down. They just haven't posted them to the website. Well, if you have information on any of the missing offenders we profiled tonight, take action. Go to WTKR.com and click on the link to this story. In the control room, Jessica Larche, News Channel 3.